My name is Kael. I'm 31, and if there's one thing I've learned from being the middle child of a family that worships appearances, it's that being invisible doesn't mean you're forgotten. It just means they're pretending you don't exist until they need something. For years, I played the part of the agreeable one, not because I lacked a spine, but because standing your ground in a family like mine meant setting off a series of small emotional grenades no one wanted to deal with. My older sister, Bree, was always the star, the one with the perfect Instagram life, the Pinterest boards for every holiday, and a sense of entitlement so polished you could see your reflection in it. And my mom? Let's just say she ran PR for Bree like it was her full-time job. Me? I was the quiet one. The one who worked behind the scenes, the one they called when someone's car broke down or when a deposit needed topping up just until payday. So when Bree got engaged, I kept my expectations low. I sent a congratulatory text, offered to help if needed, and otherwise stayed in my lane. I didn't expect to be asked to be part of the wedding party, didn't expect any special recognition. God forbid I upstage her with my very average presence. But I did assume, foolishly, that I'd at least be treated like family. Especially considering I'd been quietly funding things here and there over the past year, helping Mom pay her half of the engagement party venue when Bree accidentally forgot the invoice, covering the florist deposit when Dad's card got declined, even floating Bree a few $100 when she miscalculated her dress budget. I never made a show of it, never asked for thanks, but I did think it bought me at least one seat. Just one. The wedding day arrived with the kind of suffocating perfection only Bree could pull off. Every detail screamed curated elegance. The rustic vineyard venue with the vintage lanterns, the gold-foiled menus, the hand-painted signs reminding everyone to cherish this moment. I arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in the navy suit Bree had once told me wasn't too distracting, holding a simple card with an envelope inside, my gift, a sizable financial one, since I knew they were eyeing an expensive honeymoon package in Italy. It was my way of saying, I support you, even if I don't matter much to you. As I approached the check-in table, I gave my name, expecting the usual nod and direction. Instead, the young girl flipping through the guest list squinted, frowned, and said, I don't see a Kael listed here. Are you sure you're not someone's plus one? I blinked, then gave her my last name. Still nothing. A man beside her leaned over, checked the printed sheet, and said, Sorry, sir. Maybe try the overflow table? Overflow? Confused, I walked toward the reception area, scanning the beautifully arranged tables with their ivory centerpieces and gold-rimmed glassware. Each place setting had a name, and I didn't see mine anywhere. I spotted my cousin Ava, who waved me over awkwardly, then leaned in with a sympathetic smile. Kael, I think you're by the back. Like, near the bathrooms. I don't know why, they said they were tight on space. Tight on space. Right. Except I saw Bree's high school friend, who she hadn't spoken to in a decade, sitting front and center, laughing with my aunt. And then I saw him. My ex Micah. The same man who ghosted me after 2 years together, who just so happened to now be Bree's best friend's roommate. He was in the front row, wearing a tailored suit and smiling like he belonged there. And I, apparently, didn't. I stood frozen, staring, until I felt a gentle hand on my arm. My mother, dressed in a pale blush gown, her makeup immaculate, not a hair out of place. She looked at me like someone who just spotted a stain on her favorite dress. Kael, she said, voice low and clipped. I didn't know you'd actually come. I RSVP'd, I replied, confused and trying not to let my voice crack. She smiled, one of those brittle, polite ones that never reach the eyes. We just weren't sure. You know how you were with gatherings. And, well, Bree worked so hard to curate a certain aesthetic. You understand, right? Aesthetic. That word echoed in my head like a slap. I turned to look again. My seat was there, next to the swinging door that led to the restrooms. A single folding chair, metal, no name tag, not even a centerpiece. Just a plain white napkin. The humiliation burned through me like acid. I looked down at the envelope in my hand, the one with the check inside. A generous one. Something I knew would have helped them afford those beachfront suites Bree kept gushing about. I wanted to leave. I should have just left. But then I remembered every time I'd swallowed my pride so they wouldn't have to feel awkward. Every joke at my expense brushed off as just teasing. Every quiet withdrawal from my account to cover someone else's mess. Every time my parents forgot my birthday but made a production of Bree's. And I knew I wasn't going to walk away quietly this time. With a calm I didn't quite feel, I walked down the center of the venue, past the laughing guests and the string quartet playing some classical piece I didn't recognize. I reached the head table. Bree turned, all glowing skin and pinback curls, mid-laugh. When she saw me, her smile faltered. I held her gaze. I could feel the silence ripple around me, the way people instinctively sense something off. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, and placed it gently on the table in front of her. Then, just loud enough for everyone to hear, I said, "You can pay for your own honeymoon now." Her mouth dropped open. A few heads turned. I saw Micah shift uncomfortably in his seat. My mother's face drained of color. But I didn't wait for a reply. I turned on my heel and walked toward the exit. I didn't look back as I walked past the photo booth, past the perfectly arranged macarons, past the welcome sign that read Bree and Callum, a love story written in the stars. All I heard behind me was the growing murmur of confusion, clinks of forks pausing mid-bite, chairs creaking as people leaned in, whispers breaking through the forced cheer. I reached my car with my pulse pounding in my ears and sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel, hands trembling not with regret, but with the aftershock of years' worth of swallowed indignities finally bursting free. I didn't cry. Not right away. But when I turned the key in the ignition, the tears came and not out of sadness, but a deep, aching exhaustion. Like my soul had been carrying a weight for too long, and I'd finally set it down. I drove home in silence, ignoring the flurry of messages that lit up my phone within 10 minutes of leaving. First, a text from Leo, my brother. "Dude, what is going on?" Then from my aunt. "You okay?" That was unexpected. Then a call from Mom, which I let go to voicemail. Then another. And another. I finally turned my phone off when Bree's name popped up on the screen. I knew exactly what that call was going to be. Not an apology. Not an attempt to understand. Just damage control. When I woke up the next morning, it was like a dam had broken overnight. 37 unread messages. 4 voicemails. Even an email from Bree titled, "Unbelievable." I opened it against my better judgment. "Kael, I don't even know where to begin." I tried to be gracious. "I didn't even make a scene when you just showed up even though you weren't confirmed. And then you embarrassed me in front of everyone? During the head table toast?" I was crying in the bridal suite for an hour while Callum tried to calm me down. "Mom said you were probably just feeling left out. But honestly, you should be ashamed. We had a vision. We had a theme. You know how important that day was for me. And you made it about you. Please send the check when you've calmed down. We already booked the hotel and can't get a refund." Bree, that last line. "Please send the check." As if my boundary was just a tantrum. As if my pain could be placated with a delayed donation. I stared at the email for a while, trying to decide whether I was more angry or amazed at the gall. Eventually, I just closed my laptop and went about my day. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because the real unraveling hadn't even started yet. 2 days later, I got a call from Callum's older sister, Jasmine. We'd only met once, briefly, at a family barbecue, but she remembered me. She said she hoped it wasn't too weird to call, but she just wanted to ask me something. "Did you really not have a seat?" she asked softly. Because that's not what Bree's telling people. I told her the truth. Every detail. The folding chair, the non-existent name card, the aesthetic comment, the way my ex had a better seat than I did, the way my mother pretended like it was perfectly normal. There was a long pause, and then she exhaled. That actually explains a lot. Apparently, Callum's family had noticed strange things too. Guests who were bumped last minute, people who were told their plus ones couldn't come due to space, and Callum's grandfather, who uses a wheelchair, being seated at the very end of a long table where no one helped him navigate. "And Callum was livid when you left," Jasmine added. "He had no idea." I didn't know how to respond to that. Livid? At me? Or at Bree? It didn't matter much, because the fallout kept spiraling. My cousin Ava texted me later that night with a blurry photo of the seating chart she'd snapped on her phone. My name was nowhere on it, but Micah's was. In block letters. Front table, left side. "Did she invite him instead of you?" Ava wrote. "Because it kinda looks like it." Then came the Facebook posts. Bree had started uploading the wedding album, curated highlights only, of course. Except people noticed I wasn't in a single picture. Not the group photo, not the ceremony, not even candid crowd shots. That's when the comments started trickling in. Polite at first. "Did Kael not make it? Where's your brother?" Then slightly more pointed. "Heard something happened at the wedding. Hope everything's okay." That's when Bree took down the entire album. Just wiped it. No explanation. 3 days after the wedding, my mother showed up at my apartment. No warning. Just knocked like she used to when I was in college and missed dinner again. She was holding a pink bakery box, lemon bars. My favorite. I didn't open the door. Kael, honey, she said through the door, can we talk? I stayed quiet. You embarrassed your sister. Still quiet. You know I hate when things escalate like this. Eventually, she left the box on my doorstep and walked away. I watched from the peephole, heart pounding, hands curled into fists. Not out of rage, just this deep ache. Like I'd spent my whole life hoping for something soft from her, something real. And all she had were baked goods and guilt trips. The lemon bars went straight into the trash. By the end of the week, I had heard from nearly every extended family member. Some were neutral, curious, cautious. Others were outraged on Bree's behalf. But a few quietly admitted they'd seen this pattern too. That I wasn't crazy. That this wasn't just one bad day, it was years of being the convenient one, the background character in a drama I was never allowed to star in. I started getting invitations to coffee. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted to catch up. An uncle offered to reimburse me for part of the wedding gift I'd almost given. And then, most surprisingly of all, I got a text from Callum. Hey Kael, can we talk? I let the message from Callum sit for almost 2 days. It wasn't out of spite. I just didn't know what I wanted from that conversation. Part of me was still raw, still processing the realization that I had been deliberately excluded, not just forgotten. Another part was afraid that whatever he had to say would be some carefully worded plea to keep quiet and let everything die down for the sake of Bree's public image. She was obsessed with optics, and I just tossed a Molotov cocktail into her curated narrative. But then I thought back to what Jasmine had said, how Callum had been livid, how he'd supposedly had no idea. That didn't match the person Bree always painted him to be. So finally, I replied, I'll talk, but not on the phone. We met at a quiet little cafe downtown, one of those indie places with mismatched mugs and lopsided shelves of books no one ever reads. I got there early, chose a table in the corner, and waited with a growing pit in my stomach. When he walked in, he looked tired, not groomed to perfection the way he was in the wedding photos. He saw me, offered a small wave, and slid into the seat across from me. Thanks for coming, he said, voice low. I didn't answer right away. I just watched him, waiting. He exhaled through his nose. I want to start by saying I'm sorry. I didn't know. About the seating. About the guest list. About Micah. Any of it. That last one hit me harder than I expected. You didn't know Micah was invited? I asked, skeptical. No, he said firmly. Bree told me you weren't coming. She said you didn't RSVP. That you had a weird thing about weddings and big social events. I almost laughed. It sounded exactly like something Bree would say, just enough truth to sound plausible, just enough distance to avoid direct blame. I RSVP'd through the website, I said flatly. Weeks ago. Callum ran a hand down his face, looking exhausted. She handled all the planning herself. I should have paid more attention, but everything happened so fast. I didn't say anything. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. He finally looked up. She lied to me, Kael. And not just about you. About a lot of things. I'm still piecing things together. I studied him. There was something in his eyes, regret, yes, but also that slow, dawning awareness you see in people when they realize they married a mask and are only now starting to see the face beneath it. I don't know if it's my place, I said after a moment, but you might want to check the receipts for that honeymoon. Because I know for a fact my mom said you two couldn't afford the upgrade. That's why I was giving that check. Not out of obligation, but because I believed she loved you. He nodded slowly. She told me it was covered by her parents. That they wanted to gift us the upgrade as a surprise. I blinked. They didn't, I said. He swallowed hard. I figured. We sat in silence for a while, the noise of the cafe drifting around us like background static. Then he leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice barely above a whisper. Can I ask you something? I nodded. Why didn't you just leave? His eyes searched mine. When you saw your seat, when they said those things, why didn't you just walk away? I stared down at my untouched drink for a moment, then back at him. Because I've been walking away my whole life, I said. Every time they made me feel like I was too much or not enough. Every time I was the family joke or the errand boy or the backup plan. I walked away quietly so they wouldn't feel bad. But this time, they embarrassed me on purpose. Publicly. And I wanted them to know, really know, that I wasn't going to let it slide anymore. Callum nodded slowly, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. She told me to give this to you, he said. After she found out we were meeting. I didn't take it. I'm guessing it's not an apology, I muttered. He gave a humorless chuckle. No. It's, well, she's asking you not to talk about this. To anyone. Says it's hurting her reputation. Oh, I said. The truth's inconvenient. He nodded again, and this time there was a flicker of something stronger in his face, anger, maybe, or shame. I didn't know who I married, he admitted. I leaned back. You might have married the version she sells to the world. We all did, in our own way. We didn't talk much more after that. He paid for the drinks, thanked me for meeting him, and left with a quiet, heavy step. The next few days were weird. Calmer in some ways, but with an eerie tension simmering under the surface. Bree hadn't contacted me directly, but her orbit had. A friend of hers messaged me on Instagram, passive-aggressively calling me dramatic and telling me real family doesn't blow up weddings over one chair. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because the tide was turning. Aunt Mara, one of the more outspoken voices in the family, called me and said, I looked at that photo you were in. The one from the party last year. You were sitting in the back then too. I just didn't see it at the time. Her voice cracked a little. None of you did, I said gently. Because I never made it a problem. There was a pause. I'm sorry, Kael. The next day, she posted a photo on Facebook. Not from the wedding, but from a family reunion a few years ago. A candid one. Me holding my niece, smiling softly while everyone else was crowding around Bree. Her caption just read, sometimes the quietest ones are the ones holding everything together. That post got more likes than all of Bree's wedding photos combined. Later that week, I got a text from my mother. We need to talk. You've made things very difficult. I waited a full day before even opening that text from my mother. Not because I didn't see it, but because I wanted to sit with the feeling it gave me. That familiar cocktail of obligation, guilt, and quiet rage. You've made things very difficult. Not let's talk. Not I'm sorry. Not help me understand. Just a sentence that placed the blame, once again, squarely on me. I finally opened it on a rainy Thursday evening, curled up on my couch, listening to the patter of rain hit the window like an old metronome keeping time with my thoughts. I stared at the message for a few long seconds, then set my phone face down on the coffee table. I didn't reply. Not then. Not the next day. Not at all. And that silence, the one I used to fill with apologies, favors, or last-minute rescues, grew louder by the hour. I think that's when things really started to unravel. It began quietly. Missed calls, group chat silence, a couple of passive-aggressive posts on Facebook from one of Bree's bridesmaids about loyalty and family drama ruining weddings. I didn't engage. Neither did most of the family. But then I started getting messages, real ones, from people I hadn't heard from in months, sometimes years. Cousins, aunts, even old friends of Bree's. One cousin, Jules, messaged me late one night. Just wanted to say you weren't wrong. I remember when Bree uninvited me from her birthday dinner because my dress was the wrong shade of mauve. I thought I was being petty for still remembering, but now I get it. Another sent me a picture from Bree's wedding, a candid someone else had taken, blurry and unflattering. It showed me standing near the restroom hallway, holding my coat in one hand, the envelope in the other. Alone. Forgotten. Background noise. This one hit different after I heard the full story. The message read, she didn't even tell us you were there. By the time a week had passed, Bree had gone radio silent. No more social media posts. No updated honeymoon photos. Just a single, now deleted Instagram story that had featured a filtered beach pic with the caption, some people are determined to be the villain in your happiness. It backfired. The comments weren't what she'd hoped for. You mean your brother who paid for half your wedding and sat by the bathroom? Villains don't usually give $3,000 checks. Just saying. So is your aesthetic just excluding people who don't fit your brand? I didn't write any of those comments. I didn't have to. People were connecting the dots on their own. Then came the real blow. Jasmine texted me on a Monday afternoon. Callum moved out. He's staying with me. I sat there, stunned. I hadn't spoken to Callum since our coffee meeting, hadn't expected anything more than quiet regret on his part. But apparently, quiet regret had evolved into a full-blown confrontation. He found out Bree lied about more than just you. She opened a second credit card in his name to cover the extra touches for the wedding. Said she'd take care of it later. He only found out when the bill arrived. He says he doesn't even recognize her anymore. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just someone who had been excluded. I was someone whose absence had become a catalyst. A crack in the porcelain facade Bree had spent her whole adult life perfecting. And now the pieces were beginning to fall. It took another 3 weeks for my mother to reach out again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a knock at the door. I almost didn't answer, but something told me it was time to let this play out. I opened the door, and there she was, makeup immaculate, but her eyes tired. She looked at me like someone bracing for a storm. "Kael," she said softly. I stepped aside. Let her in. She sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, holding her purse like it was a lifeline. "I came to talk," she said. "Really talk. Not deflect. Not defend." I sat across from her, silent. She took a breath. "I didn't see it. I really didn't. I thought. I thought we were protecting Bree. That she needed more. That you were fine." That made me laugh, bitter and low. "Because I didn't complain?" She looked down. "Yes. I wasn't fine," I said. "But it was easier for everyone if I acted like I was. So I did." She nodded slowly, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse. "I didn't mean to make you feel small." "But you did," I said, over and over. "And not just you. Bree, Dad, the whole family. I was useful, quiet, disposable." There was a long silence. She didn't deny it. Didn't argue. That was new. "Your father and I," she started, then stopped. "We got so used to Bree's intensity. Her expectations. Her flare-ups. It was easier to manage her than to challenge her. You were easier to overlook." I blinked. That wasn't an apology, but it was close. She looked up at me. "Kael, what can I do now?" I thought about it for a long moment. "You can stop asking me to fix everything," I said. "You can start telling the truth. To yourself. To others. You can stop pretending Bree is the victim here." My mother sat quietly, then nodded. "I can do that." She left not long after. No hug. No parting lemon bars. Just a quiet, measured goodbye. I didn't expect much to change after that. But it did. A few days later, a family group chat popped up on my phone. One that Bree wasn't in. It was started by Leo, of all people, who'd previously kept his head down during all the drama. The first message surprised me. "We need to do better." Starting with Kael. "I'm sorry, bro." Messages followed from others. Apologies, memories, even offers to get together. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an accessory to someone else's story. And Bree? She stayed quiet. Rumors swirled. Callum had officially filed for an annulment. Her influencer friends stopped tagging her in photos. She locked her Instagram. Even my mother, when I last saw her, said Bree hadn't returned her calls in over a week. I don't know what Bree's next move will be. And honestly, I don't care. I spent so long thinking that family meant shrinking yourself to make room for others. That love was endurance. That silence was peace. Not anymore. I didn't become bitter. I became free. And if that makes me the villain in someone else's fairy tale, so be it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.